Wednesday, December 3rd. I'm Jim Check. With me, Iain Burns, out there in the nation's capital. Traffic flowing nicely here in the Okanagan. We got that live shot there going for you. Lots going on though. Lots. First Nations say no way to pipeline. And Carney says, I will defend Canada's free press till my last day. Is that supposed to be sarcasm or what is that? Carney accused of running away. Carbon capture, First Nations say, no thanks. Canadians want an economy-first government. Who would have thought? Power and the lack of will. More Liberal spin debunked by the PBO's office. Does Jolie even know what the truth looks like? I don't know if even if a truck ran over with the truth sign on it, I'm not sure. Would she know? Another Liberal scandal as Stellantis says they never asked for redactions. Come on, you can't use the same BS on carbon tax not affecting costs, but try anyway. Freeland speaks on Ukrainian corruption, and the Freeland tax on luxury was never studied. Governor General dishing out tax credits for that skating rink. Junkets no bounds for Liberals that want to jet about. And EB has opened up Pandora's box for Canada. Chow wants more money. Elon Musk comments on BC crime, and this is a wild story. And more bad news for BC jobs. Trump, and more Trump. And EU finally shutting off Russian energy. How long has that war been going on now, and they're finally going to shut off Russian energy? It's just like,
quite outrageous, isn't it? Nearly 4 years.
You can't even write this stuff as like comedy in itself. Children in the U.S. get a huge leg up, and that's huge. That one's big. And the tech world is on fire. All that and a lot more. I mean, we got a lot. We got a big show, a really big show, as they say, as Ed Sullivan used to say, a really big show. We are an independent media outlet based in Kelowna, Iain's in Ottawa, and we're doing news differently here, news commentary. It's usually supposed to be an hour, but it's usually an hour and a half, hour and 45, because there's so much going on in the world. And we're trying to help you see through the narratives that are being spun. And if you would like to help us get our message out to more people, please like, share, comment, hit the heart button, hit the whatever button you want to hit, and even hit us with some negative comments. Who cares? Share, and let's discuss, and let's make Canada a better place. That's what we really want to do. And that is our goal. We're late today because, you know, we don't have the $1.5 billion that the CBC has, and Iain has some sick little ones at home again. So there you go.
It's relentless. He's just started school, and it's relentless sickness, which is pretty typical.
We're going to kick it off with there was a First Nations meeting, and they're basically saying no way to the pipeline. Let's listen in.
First Nations chiefs voted unanimously to demand the withdrawal of a new pipeline deal between the federal government and Alberta and urged the federal government to uphold its oil tanker ban off BC's north coast.
The truth is that Canada can create all the MOUs, project offices, advisory groups that they want, but chiefs are united. When it comes to approving large national projects on First Nations lands, there will not be getting around rights holders. That's another reason outstanding First Nations treaty rights must be reconciled before others, because Métis rights do not include rights over First Nations lands, territories, and resources.
Crazy that, isn't it? I mean, when you think about what Métis are, cross between Europeans and First Nations, that's basically making it an entirely genetic, you know, literally blood and soil for anybody that's studied the rise of our German friends over there, the Austrian painter.
And we had some more here at that conference, and this is a First Nation chief yelling at Mark Carney. Mark Carney didn't spend too much time there, but let's listen in on this clip here.
Again, I believe this shows the importance to our Prime Minister. Chief Jacko. There we are. And again, I think this highlights the need maybe for a longer presence next time. Chief Jacko, please. Chief Jacko, please. We understand.
That's good. Carney ran away from the Parliament as well. He didn't spend much time there. He's obviously a busy guy. Spent a few minutes there, a few minutes there, and getting yelled at everywhere he goes.
Well, I spent rather longer at the press gallery evening, where he's making all kinds of jokes and giggling along. I mean, I'm sure that they're very sensitive to that kind of thing, aren't they? Assembly of First Nations. But I do think, I don't know. I mean, there's so much to say about this, I feel. I mean, just to go back to the leader of the Assembly of First Nations, the first video that we looked at there, where she said, you know, this is not going to happen. Basically, just saying it was like that was an absolute, like that this is just not going to happen. I just kind of think, is it not though? Like, what if they put a bill through Parliament that says that, you know, those rights are suspended or something? Like, that can happen. It's just people talk about it as if it's kind of like this came, like Moses brought from Mount Sinai and was like, here you go, First Nations rights. It's like, this is a relatively new concept, but it's being presented as if it's just like, it's immovable and it's just like it's a part of the firmament and there's nothing that you can do about it. I mean, there obviously is. There is something that can be done about it, but it's just, I feel this confidence, this bullishness, and always, or very often, a very negative relationship, isn't it? It's a very sort of toxic relationship that the federal government and the provinces have with various nations. I was saying earlier on, it's like this is a bit of a crisis. You know, this is something that really has to be figured out and fixed. Because this is just strange. I mean, I think it was the guy before that one that was Wacko Jacko there, who was hurling abuse at Carney. I think the one before that started off his question, because a few of them got to ask Carney some questions. He started off by referring to his land as occupied. And he was talking like he was some sort of freedom fighter or something like that. Or like, you know, somebody in the West Bank complaining about the state of Israel. It's like, this is serious. This is a serious problem, that this philosophy, this perspective really does, you know, it has a constituency in this country. Lots of people see it that way. And that's massive. That's a serious, serious problem. You know, you can't have all these competing sovereignties, and you can't have lots of people in your country, especially powerful people, that don't believe in the legitimacy of your country. You know, that's like, you would think that would be near the top of the menu for problems to deal with if you were in charge of this country.
And even more, the Carney-Smith deal, this is from the Local Journalism Initiative, will bring carbon capture to Cold Lake, and the First Nations, they don't want it. And that's including Kelsey Jacko, the one that was speaking there, the chief of the Cold Lake First Nation, says the nation has raised concerns since 2023 and have not been included in key discussions with Ottawa, Alberta, and the industry on this carbon capture stuff, where they're going to bury this proposed carbon capture and storage project. Involves a 400-kilometer-long CO2 pipeline transporting captured emissions from more than 20 oil sands facility in Northern Alberta to a storage hub near Cold Lake on lands claimed by Cold Lake and other local First Nations. And, you know, there's been some incidents, and one of these, this article points out they're worried about potential leaks contaminating crucial groundwater supplies, similar to incidents reported elsewhere. One such incident occurred at the Archel Daniels Midland carbon capture plant in Decanter, Illinois, where thousands of tons of CO2 escaped underground, heavier than air. CO2 can collect in low points before dispersing. And that's the thing about this carbon capture. They're going to inject it into the ground and sort of capture it in the ground. But, I mean, the ground is full of fissures. Earthquakes happen. All kinds of things happen. How do you ensure that it stays in the ground? This is almost like selling NFTs. This is just like fantastical or fantasy land stuff. And I can see.
But you're saying, how can you guarantee it? You can't guarantee it. Look, because it's right there in front of you. Thousands of tons of CO2 escaped underground in Illinois. You can't guarantee it. So there is a possibility it's going to happen. And how ironic as well that we're being told constantly by the Liberals and Mark Carney that this is like great for First Nations, and almost like this is for the First Nations. That's almost how they like to present it.
Yeah.
Like they're going to have ownership, they're going to get loads of money, and it's going to protect the environment. It's like, except the First Nations that have to have CO2 coming up from underground and poisoning their water. It's just like, okay.
And the thing is, they would look at it and say, well, it just increases the need for the industry, because if it escapes, then you got to capture more of it, and just like it's like an endless loop of just like nonsense.
Or they could say, it's all the more reason for us to spend $16.5 billion on it, because we need to perfect this technology if we're going to survive as a species.
Yeah, and the Pathways has delayed the review, arguing it cannot yet provide the information needed for the Impact Assessment Agency of Canada to make a determination. And this is a good article. If you go on kelownanow.com, you can read this article. Jacko said they formed their own working group to examine the proposed project. The group includes members with experience in oil development, social inequities, and participation in cumulative efforts. They say that infringe on their treaty rights and their way of life. This carbon capture, CCUS, all these companies that are likely going to end up in Canada here from the United States, because there's no carbon capture credits there, bleeding the Canadian taxpayer and injecting it into the ground. And we've seen that there's a couple places I know of in the United States already where they've done this type of technology, and the carbon has escaped from underground. Like, it's just ridiculous. You can't even see underground. And how do you know it's going to stay underground? Just because you inject it into the ground? Obviously, it's a gas. It'll find fissures and cracks and different things. And if there is no cracks there today, there'll be a crack there tomorrow, maybe from an earthquake. We just had one here in the Okanagan.
Yeah, exactly.
Was it
totally.
4 in Penticton when I was in Tokyo?
They happen all the time. They happen, Canada's, quite a lot of parts of Canada experience earthquakes. Obviously, that's also true of the United States.
But maybe
it doesn't take much. It could be quite a small one, and that could theoretically create new fissures, as you say.
Maybe if they talk to the CO2 and tell it that it has to stay down there, it will behave instead of, like trying to escape. Yeah.
It just seems, this should be a much harder sell than it seems to have been so far, I feel, because this is like,
nonsense.
This really does strike me as quite a stretch for so many reasons. The most important reason of being, that Canada has no effect on global CO2 emissions, and a negligible effect, might as well say zero. Therefore, why are we doing it? Like, that's the immediate question. But then even if you just ignore that, you bat that aside, there are questions about the sort of the geology here and the physics, whether or not this is actually going to work. There are so many questions about this. But I mean, it's got a nice little initialism now, hasn't it? CCUS.
Yeah.
And then if ever we hear anything about it, we hear it's going to be a world-leading industry that makes us lots of money. There's no evidence to suggest that that's true. I mean, all the money's going to come from us. We're going to pay for it. It's going to be taxpayers' money. And then we're also told that it's excellent for the environment. And it just seems to be that nowadays, that's good enough, really, isn't it? It's all you have to say. Oh, it's great for the environment. It's like, sign me up, buddy.
Yeah, CCUS, you would think the media would be pushing back hard on this, because it's basically another form of taxation, and including some people are saying it's a 600% increase in carbon tax. But let's go check out the CBC, because I'm sure they're covering this story. I'm sure they have it here. If we pull up the CBC website, what do we got here? Tim Hortons lobbied MPs for more temporary workers. Imagine that. Tim Hortons, not even a Canadian company anymore, having that much influence that they lobbied MPs for more foreign workers. Imagine that, eh? That not even a Canadian company.
I don't know about you. Every time I drive past the Tim Hortons, absolutely rammed. I mean, it's so popular still.
Yeah.
Despite not being Canadian, and also people complaining about how bad it is. But
I mean, where temporary foreign, it's all about temporary foreign workers. And then there's this headline here: that white guy can't get a job at Tim Hortons. He's AI. Like, what? Canada pledges, we're going to talk about more about Ukraine funding. But where are the stories on carbon capture? Where are the stories on the First Nations saying no way to the pipeline? Where is all that?
Launching hundreds of thousands of satellites will threaten space research, scientists warn. That's a good one.
Comedy. That should be the comedy.
That's a really good.
That should be the Comedy Channel and the Trump Network, because I do see a Trump on there for sure, because you got to get a few Trump stories in here. Trump pardons Texas Democratic Republican or Representative Kuehler in bribery conspiracy. Yeah. And there's 2 Trump stories. Trump targets Minnesota Somalia community. Yeah. Got to get the Trump stories in. Got to feed the raw meat to the boomers. And here's something.
Feed that orange meat.
Here's something that is Canadians finally are saying they're not keen on climate policy if they damage the economy. 10 years too late with Justin Trudeau, who's destroyed our economy with the likes of Stephen Guilbeault and the rest of them have destroyed our economy. We should be the richest resource nation in the world, have a large sovereign wealth fund, but we don't. We have more and more job losses, more and more people being pushed into poverty, where the Liberals now scream that they need to have food programs at schools because people can't even afford to feed their kids at home.
Yeah. And surveys like this, we should say, nothing new in particularly, but the environment is a bit more in the news now. So they've done this. Abacus Data have done this survey based on the news out of Alberta and all the rest of it. But this isn't new. Canadians for a while have had very different opinions on this kind of thing than the likes of Stephen Guilbeault, Mark Miller, Justin Trudeau, and all of Trudeau's ministers who all of a sudden have changed their mind and are now loyalists to Mark Carney. But it's very important to bear that in mind. So when you see like Stephen Guilbeault weeping on television and talking about how Canadians want to save the environment and things like that, it's like, if you look at the evidence, this doesn't really ask about the environment per se, but Canadians have a very different idea of what it is that's going to prevent climate change or what would actually protect the environment. Very different from what Stephen Guilbeault thinks, or somebody like Elizabeth May, which is why those people are quite accurately referred to in certain circles as extremists, because that's what they are. They represent a very, very small number of people at the far end of the spectrum of particularly of this kind of progressive interpretation of environmentalism. They are not representative in general of the Canadian people, or even, if you look here, or even of people in Quebec, which I find quite interesting.
Our Canadian economy suffers, and all that remember Justin Trudeau said, if you're worried about your rent and you're worried about even groceries and food and all that, like there is a priority more important than that.
But he's not going to actually try and fix that problem that he's talking about, because he never went over to China and said, stop now or all hell will break loose. Never got on the phone to India to say that. Broke off relations with India, infamously. I mean, it's absurd. Any Canadian politician that tells you that he or she needs to save the world by doing something with the tax policy in Canada or something like that, are completely false. They're either deluded or they're lying, because there's nothing that Canada can do.
You know what? We have the receipts for it later on here. We have some receipts to show you what they actually are doing. And here's another one. If you love stuff that is, you say one thing and mean another, this is Mark Carney himself saying that he will defend the freedom of the press as his last thing that he'll do. There you go. Let's listen to what he says himself. That's the one at Mark.
I am a pragmatist. And so to get out of here alive from now on, I am going to pander. Nearly 2 centuries ago, Nova Scotia's Joseph Howe stressed that an open and unshackled press is one of the strongest legacies that we can leave for future generations. And around the world, that legacy is under threat. I am proud that Canada continues to support and celebrate a free press, and I will defend it to my last day.
That's good. That's good. That's all I need to hear. You buying that?
Hurts. That hurts a bit, doesn't it? I can feel the angina coming. It's radiating out of my chest.
That has got to be one of the utmost lies. You know what I mean? Like Bill C-18 is crushing and crippling independent media in Canada. Crushing and crippling. And that's been said by more than just you and I. It's been said by some of the larger media voices in Canada, yet they continue down the same path, and they feed billions of dollars into the corporate trough for the CBC, which is definitely compromised basically the public relations office of the Prime Minister, and a corrupted media outlet. And to hear him say that is just like a big slap in the face.
He is just completely and utterly ignorant, which I find quite difficult to believe. Or he knows that what he's saying is false, but he said it anyway. And that is, that hurts all the more, really, doesn't it, if it is the latter. But he also said, I mean, one of the things that makes me pretty confident that he does actually know about media in Canada as well. Number one, we asked him a question about it. So we've seen the words going into his ears and then him responding to it. Whether he understood it, I don't know. But it's certainly been said to his face, and he seemed to reply and understand. That was about, was that 6 months ago? It was in August, I think, or July. And then also in this speech, by the way, we should say this is a press gallery speech. So like most of this was jocular with a little bit of seriousness. But this bit was just serious. Obviously, as you can tell, he's not telling a joke there. He was just being sincere there. But earlier on in the speech, he was telling jokes about the National Post and Post Media, and he referred to them as state-funded. Did you see that bit? He was mocking them, and he was saying, "You're the state-funded right-wing agitprop," or whatever he referred to them as. I can't remember. Something like apocalyptic right-wing nonsense or something like that. But he was like, and we fund you, and we're very happy to fund you, or something like that. So that also makes me think he knows. He does know. I don't think ignorance is a defense here. So he knows about the media landscape, and then he said this, which makes me, very sadly have to say that I think he's being deceptive. I think he's telling fibs there, and very, very damaging ones, as far as, if anyone's paying attention, if anybody actually knows what it's like in Canada for the media and how free or not they are, it's quite heartbreaking, actually, to see the Prime Minister behave in such a disreputable way.
In that room, the CBC, or the stars of the show, they were referred to many times by many of the people that went to the podium there, and they get all their money from the government, and definitely from the Liberal government, because Pierre Poilievre said if he won government, he would defund them, not destroy them, just defund them and make them figure out a way to get their own money. And then the other journalists in there, almost half their salaries are paid for by the government. That is not a free, independent media in Canada. He says one thing, but he also acknowledges in another breath that he is funding the media. That is not a free and independent media. Global, that's named in there as well, is basically like the Walking Dead. They're basically like living off of nothing. Their stock has crashed down to almost, like it's a penny stock. And at the same time, they're laying off journalists left and right, and the executive take bonuses like there's no tomorrow. And the same thing with Catherine Tate, former CEO of CBC, all just dipping their face into the trough and sucking up Liberal funds.
And the minister in charge of this, we've asked the Prime Minister, didn't get anywhere, but the minister in charge of this is the Minister of Canadian Identity and Culture. Ridiculous name, ridiculous job title. But that was Stephen Guilbeault. Tried for 6 months to get an interview with him. His little media woman just kept saying, I'm trying. He's just really busy. He was busy doing things like going to Brazil, not even his job, to an environmental conference, to do nothing. But anyway, and now it's Mark Miller. We've already asked for an interview with him, and still no response from the media people. These media people, by the way, in many cases, like very, very decent amount of money that they're paid, 6 figures. They live pretty cozy, paid for by you. You ensure that they have this nice life. Their job, their only job, is to respond to the media on behalf of the government and the government's ministers. No response. There comes a point, surely, where one's patience expires, and I'm just wondering, because it's by no means the area where Canadians are let down. But let's see how much longer the patience will last.
Jason Kenney put out this tweet. He says the smartest voice on energy. This Heather puts out there's 840,000 kilometers of pipelines in this country. There's probably one you're connected to your house. And there's a lot of pipelines that carry natural gas to your home and all kinds of stuff. And yet we're so freaked out on a pipeline, this one pipeline, that we want to get more energy to the West Coast. It really brings to the point is like, Well, there's so many pipelines that are, like they make it so scary on these pipelines. There's tons of pipelines already. And yet it's anti-energy policies. And who's funding it is the real question. Who's funding this anti-energy movement here in Canada? Like, why such a strong resistance to it? These same people that are screaming about it still drive their cars. We're going to see some liberals that just go on junkets everywhere. They don't mind spending or using energy, but they surely don't want you or the rest of the Canadian economy to benefit from our resources that lay beneath our feet.
I say again what I said in the past. There has been, over a period of decades, a kind of mass radicalization that has occurred in Canada, not just Canada, but that's all we're interested in for this moment. And these people have been groomed and radicalized by God knows who, various people, into thinking that oil, pipelines, industry, gas, basically everything that makes life and civilization possible, are the tools of the devil, which is fundamentally insane. It's insanity. It's a completely deluded, deranged view of the world. Unless you really do want to return to the Bronze Age or something like that. If that's what you want, then say it. Okay, let's go back to like 60% infant mortality, and if you get the flu, you die and stuff like that. Like, all right, if you really want to do that, let's do it. But I don't think that that's accurate. I think most people want to live in the civilized world, don't they? They want to live in the present. That's based on fossil fuels. And particularly in the case of Canada, it's almost entirely based on fossil fuels. So why is it that like fairly large chunks of the population, maybe 20%, have been driven to this extremism and this just completely mad perspective, which is fundamentally anti-Canadian, anti-civilization, anti-Western? What is going on? What's going on with these people? It's anti-low infant mortality, if you want to put it that way.
I wonder if you did a comparison with those people that are the far left extreme and watchers of the CBC, if there would be any correlation there.
Well, I think, what was that? I always forget the name of the Exxon Valdez, or the tanker that crashed off Alaska.
Exxon Valdez.
I feel like, yeah, that one. That obviously pictures of seagulls covered in oil and stuff like that. I think that might have played quite a big role in radicalizing people. So yeah, and that was amplified massively by the news without any context. I mean, they are so often the sort of unwitting tools of radicalization, aren't they? Newspapers and TV shows and things like that, TV news. But I also think people like David Attenborough and the BBC, who make the best nature documentaries in the world, best sort of recordings of the nature we've ever had. I feel like, again, like almost inadvertently, like a lot of that is talking about how this beautiful bird or something like that is going to be driven to extinction, almost always because of industrial development, and it's not really contextualized, as in it's not presented as, and this will bring down poverty and this will be an excellent thing for humanity. It's not. They don't usually contextualize like that. They just focus on the beautiful bird that's now going to be threatened, and I just feel like it's lacked context for so long. Hence, we're in this strange situation now, like, as I said, where people don't seem to realize this truth about the pipelines. People don't seem to realize just how dependent every good thing in the world that we have is on fossil fuels. It's basically like everything we have, everything we know and love, like material anyway, is based on fossil fuels. Our food system, our energy system, our healthcare system, it's all based on that. Even you could even say like our political system and the way that we organize socially, it's all based on, even in terms of how we work. Like, we don't have indentured servants or slavery anymore. This all goes back to fossil fuels. How strange, how bizarre that we've made an enemy of this thing that's like dragged us out of hell, the hell of pre-industrial societies.
We're going to use this.
It baffles me.
We're going to use this next chart over and over again until people get the point. Look at this. AI is the future of the world. AI is a big consumer of energy. China leads the way. Canada, does not lead the way. Canada squanders its resources. And the squandering has all to do with policy, has nothing to do with what we have and the ability. And capital flees Canada because of the policies. And those are the facts. Those are absolute facts. And the data doesn't lie. You can lie all you want, and we're going to see some of the lies coming up later from the Liberals, telling you these things, that not to believe your eyes, not to believe your ears, just to believe the rhetoric that comes out of their mouths. But look at this. This is important. This chart you should study and understand very, very well.
And energy is just like, you struggle to find a better proxy for wealth than energy. I mean, it's basically impossible. It is the #1 proxy for wealth, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, but you have to divide it per capita. So you look at Canada, 1985 Canada's population, we looked in yesterday, something like 28 million. Now it's 42 million, same amount of energy. So now you've got to divide all that energy between all those extra people. So is it any surprise Canadians feel poorer? And that Chinese feel richer, and that they feel like they're getting richer every year?
Here you go. In January, Canada facing the likelihood of a Conservative government that would undo every climate action. So this is the thing. They continue to believe that the Conservatives, who would unleash our energy, that was part of Poilievre's platform, unleash the energy. They believe that this climate action that Canada has undertook is so important that Canadians need to sacrifice. They don't talk to the Canadians that can't make their car payments, their house payments, can't put food on the table. And now they're celebrating that they're going to give their kids lunch at school because the families can't give their own kids lunch. Shameful, shameful, shameful.
And that's hardly comprehensive. It's not like every kid everywhere is getting school lunches. And I mean, it's like, as usual, patchy. Just like the dental thing, just like the pharmacare.
I interviewed the head of the food bank here in Kelowna recently. That I think is about a 200% increase over the past few years in food bank usage. And the sad part of it is a lot of it has to do with children. And there was no government help in the Kelowna food bank. It was all funded by like local donations and different drives that they do. No government funding. And they have a school program as well. And yeah, you know, they talk big, but the actual delivery is a lot less of that. And here's another one. Their housing program was going to be the greatest thing ever, right? They started a new housing office as well. And then here we come, Jason Jackson, the PBO, blew a major hole in Mark Carney's promise to build housing at a pace never seen since World War II, saying only 26,000 units will be built over 5 years. 26,000 units over 5 years. I listened to his whole little interview that he did with Bloomberg too. This absolutely blows you away from what they say is going to happen and the reality of the situation. Don't forget they spent, what, 30,000 plus on just that fake. Remember that fake announcement they did? They put up that housing. They were going to build houses faster than anybody, and they spent $30,000 plus on a photo op. Let's listen to what they have to say here.
Showing off his construction chops has been a regular photo op for Mark Carney, accompanied by bold promises.
We will build at a pace not seen since the Second World War.
But a new report from the interim parliamentary budget officer says the Liberals are nowhere on track to meet the Prime Minister's lofty goals.
We estimate about 26,000 units will be created over the next 5 years.
The Liberals, who have previously sparred with the PBO, dispute the numbers, saying their spending will help build 86,000 units.
I think this is just the beginning, and we're going to deliver a ton of affordable housing, and we're going to leverage a lot of investment from across Canada to get that done.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The report, political ammunition for the Conservatives.
Why won't he listen to us and stop building bureaucracy so that we can start building homes?
The great thing about being a lifelong member of Parliament is you've never built anything and you don't know numbers.
Numbers the Liberals don't dispute, a 56% cut in federal housing funding from 2025 to 2029, with multiple current programs expiring without replacement. That has leading housing experts saying Carney's goal of building 500,000 houses annually won't be met.
The last 2 years of the Trudeau government were more ambitious on housing than what we've seen from the Carney government.
While the finance minister is promising additional funding for housing in the future, the Liberals have already guaranteed massive increases to other key programs.
We'll have accelerated old age security spending by $29 billion.
Good. I watched that whole interview with PBO as well, and he was saying, these numbers that the Carney Liberals are putting out there just don't add up. 26,000 units, that's what they're going to build over 5 years. Remember that budget that they had for that? It was just ludicrous, just absolute ludicrous.
And the promise as well, 500,000 houses, wasn't it? Was the promise that they were going to, their magisterial efforts were going to produce that 500,000. And people was, right away, people were like, nah, not a chance. Not a chance that's going to happen. And sure enough.
Yeah, but that story, is that on CBC? No, I didn't see it. But here's that Gregor Robertson, a little more clip on there. He says, oh no, it's kind of like seed capital. We're just waiting for capital to come in. From where?
Just opened the portal. We have just the initial capitalization in the budget of $13 billion. We also have $51 billion of housing enabling infrastructure. So combined, a significant investment that's designed to attract private investment in housing. The way we've built affordable housing for the last 3 decades is not enough. It's not being built fast enough. There's not enough capital coming to invest in affordable housing. So we're looking at crowding in investment from other levels of government and private sector and scaling up the work for affordable housing. This is just the beginning with Build Canada Homes. We will be scaling that work, bringing the capital to the table so we can build on affordable housing at an unprecedented scale. Going to meet right now with counterparts.
Just says a lot of nothing.
Would you, this is a completely serious comment. Would you buy a car off him? If he was a car dealer? Absolutely no chance. I would say, I like the car, but sorry, I just can't. I could not possibly trust you. Even though you look like Giga Chad. I just couldn't possibly trust you. Even his verbs, like we're crowding in the capital, what was he when he said, is it scaling? We're going to scale up the capital. It's like,
he did. No, he forgot the word catalyze.
I'm not buying your car.
He forgot the word catalyze. We're going to catalyze the investment. I mean, they all go into a room there and they're given these words and they have to put paragraphs together with these words, I think, and they just say nothing. Absolutely nothing. And the results are, again, nothing. 26,000 homes over 5 years, and the amount of investment that goes into this thing is absolutely ludicrous. And if you want to take ludicrous to the next level, so we've had Carney so far say he supports an independent free press. Here's a guy saying that they're going to build so many homes. And now the reality of the situation, both of those are outright fallacies. And here's Melanie Joly. Remember, she was going to stand up for those Algoma jobs. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. Turns out, before they even gave that loan, they knew that those layoffs are coming. And this had nothing to do with Trump. They were laying these people off because they're switching to green tech. They knew it all along. Let's play this clip.
So obviously, I want to talk about what's going on at Algoma Steel in Sault Ste. Marie. My thoughts are definitely with the workers, their families. I know this is a tough time, and I know this is a tough time, particularly just before Christmas. And so I've been in contact with the company's leadership. I've been in contact with the CEO, the CFO, and also with Marty Warren, who's in charge of the steelworkers. We know that the entire steel sector in Canada has been mostly organized over supporting the U.S. automakers. And their business model before the tariffs was actually organized around that market. And because of the unjustified and unjustifiable American tariffs, which are at 50%, our steel sector is not able to send steel on the other side of the board to these U.S. automakers. And so in that sense, we've been working with the company to make sure that they were adapting their business model. And that is why we've provided this fall $400 million to the company, and Ontario also provided $100 million. And the goal was to make sure that the company would get through these months while they were working on pivoting and adapting their entire operations. We've been working with them also on a new beam steel plant and also a new plate steel plant in order to support the housing sector and also the defense sector. And we think that through these investments, there can be more jobs that come back to Algoma. and which will be the case for many steel plants across the country. We also think that our Buy Canada policy is working. Algoma has now received orders from Irving shipyards and also from Seaspan, 2 important shipyards across the country. Now, is it enough? We still need to be at it. And I know that this is not a perfect answer to those who are affected. But my point is we'll continue to fight for these jobs. We'll be working with the union, we'll be working with the company, and we'll make sure that the future can be brighter right now for the steel workers.
Well, they interviewed CEO Michael Garcia, and they asked him whether or not the government knew about these layoffs before they gave the $500 million. And he said, yeah, they did. And then this has to do with when Trudeau gave him the money, like $400 million to switch over to green technology. And that's where these layoffs were going to happen. They were going to happen regardless of what was happening in the United States. These cuts were coming already because they're going to shut down these old blast furnaces.
Yeah, he said, and speaking of Vasi Kapelos here, CTV, he said those jobs are never coming back. Once we close the blast furnaces, we're not going to rebuild them. We're not going to reopen them. We're going to move over to this different kind of steel production.
Let's play
and
that.
Those jobs aren't going to come back. He said, we might create some, like a couple of hundred, but it's 1,000 people been laid off here.
Yeah.
They're not, Jolie, as usual, Jolie, either she doesn't know or she's misrepresenting reality there, where she said, they're going to be new jobs, we're going to bring jobs. No, you're not. They're not going to be, people are going to be out of work permanently here. And I just have to say, you might think this is a bit cheap, but I've got to say it. That was like an insult at the beginning there, where she was like, my thoughts are with the families, especially in the run up to Christmas. All right, now it's like, this woman here is paid something like $300,000 a year. So before tax, that means she's getting in her bank account. So for all we know, she left and went into a private room, opened up her RBC app, and it said, deposited into your bank account from the government of Canada, $30,000, something like that, per month. That's what she's living on. And this woman speaks like that. She has absolutely no idea. And she uses phrases like, I know what you're going through. You don't know anything. You don't know anything what they're going through. In a place as well like Sault Ste. Marie, where are they going to get jobs? That's not a place that has like an abundance of jobs. It's miles away. Like, what's going to happen to their lives now? And this woman, no sense of, first of all, she doesn't care, or don't get the impression that she cares, but there's also no sense that she has any responsibility. It's just America that did it. All right, but you're the federal government. You're supposed to negotiate with America. Why haven't you got why haven't you got the tariff down with America? That's your job, isn't it? Why haven't you done that? There's one area that you failed. Also, why did you give them $400 million when you knew that they were going to lay off 1,000 workers and close the blast furnaces and move to a different kind of steel production that was going to leave hundreds of people at least out of work? There's no sense of responsibility. This is not responsible government, frankly.
Let's play this clip here from Vasi and the CEO of Algoma.
You mentioned the lifeline in the form of those loans, $400 million from the federal government, $100 million from the government of Ontario. I'm sure you're aware the subject of political debate in the House of Commons in the Ontario legislature has very much been, focused on why were there not any conditions attached to that money, to those loans in order to protect Canadian jobs. Did the governments know that these layoffs were in the cards before they agreed to these loans to your company?
Well, I think the government certainly knows our business strategy. It knows the pivot that we had to make. It knew very well that the extreme pressure the company was under. I don't think anybody would loan the company $500 million without asking very detailed questions about what our business plan was. I think the core concern is how do we protect the ongoing Algoma steel? How do we make sure this company is competitive, is viable? What's the technology you're going to use? How are you going to make steel? And the jobs associated with that are an output of that. If we're making steel with an EAF steel making platform, that requires a certain amount of jobs, and we've been very clear about how many jobs that requires. If we're making steel with blast furnace and coke ovens, that's a different number of jobs, but we aren't going to operate that way. So we're shutting those assets down, and that's what's driving the adjustment of employment. I would love to say that I can get more competitive, make more steel, make it cheaper, and make it with more employees so that there's more jobs involved. But that's just not the configuration we're moving towards. And we've been very open with that, both with the government and with our own employees.
They knew. Yet they still gave him the money. And here's more from Melanie.
Well, not only that, it's not even they knew and they still gave him the money. They gave him the money for that purpose.
Yeah.
She said at that press conference there, we gave them that money so that they could transition to this new
which
way
means
of making
layoffs.
steel or whatever.
But they straw man.
Yeah, exactly. So they gave them money to fire workers.
Yeah. Here's more. Stellantis says they didn't ask for that contract to be redacted. Remember in House of Commons there, she said, oh, they're the ones that asked for that to be redacted. Turns out Stellantis says, no, we didn't. So who's lying now?
Two groups that you can trust there.
Jolie, like, how does she still have a job in the House of Commons, like as a cabinet minister in industry? Like, you know, like she gets up and then she's got that, the theatrics that Justin Trudeau used to do where you just yell at people and you kind of like pitch it up just like a preacher almost, right? Where you start yelling and then you make it sound like you're so right because you're so emotional in your responses, right? We're going to stand there with the workers. Like, I mean, if you're a worker that just got your layoff notice, and those jobs are hard to get, and those are good paying jobs. I know I worked in the resource sector. Those are good paying jobs, but they're hard to replace because a lot of those skills don't transfer over to other areas, right? They're really industry specific. And you have somebody that stands there and just tells you lie after lie after lie, that you understand how they feel and that you're going to protect those jobs when you know it's just all BS.
The most disgusting thing is pretending that she knows. How can somebody I mean, money doesn't mean the same thing to somebody like that. It's just, at the very least, show some humility. It's really, it's really appalling. But you ask, why has she got the job? Why is she still there? We might as well, or I'll provide a guess, an answer. I think this is just the answer, but I'll provide let's call it a guess. It's because she's a female and she's from Quebec. That's it. There's nothing else to it.
And if you liked what Justin Trudeau and the Liberals used to say, that the carbon tax didn't add to the cost of food, well, they're at it again. Here's the new Minister of Environment and Climate Change for Canada. You like that title, Minister of Environment and Climate Change of Canada. It says Julie Dabrison telling us again, just in a short clip here. It's a wrong link. Well, I'll tell you what she said, that she says that the carbon tax doesn't add to increase the cost of food. Who's buying that still? Who's buying that?
Still doing that. Still putting that out there. So the industrial carbon tax doesn't contribute to the price of food because the numbers involved are just so small, Jim. It doesn't really have an effect. However, on the other hand, if you stop driving your car to work, you're going to help save the planet because there'll be less CO2 in the atmosphere, right? Because that'll make a difference. Definitely. Or whatever Canada does, here she is, Minister of Climate Change. Whatever Canada does, that will make a difference. That'll make a real difference to world CO2 levels. Believe me. Don't believe the scientists. Believe me, the Minister of Climate Change.
Just when you thought she was gone, one of the best fools ever in the cabinet there, and the former finance minister that then blamed Justin Trudeau for everything and said that Liberals wasted a decade on identity politics and virtue signaling. Here is the queen of virtue signaling talking about how Ukraine is a healthier society because of all the corruption. Listen to what she has to say.
And I know that at this conference, and this was the case in Kyiv last week, there were, of course, conversations about the corruption investigations. From my perspective, those investigations are part of this conviction that Ukrainians have, that they're fighting Russia and they're fighting to win, and they are also fighting for the kind of Ukraine they're going to build at home. Corruption revelations are always challenging. But from my perspective, it's really important for us to recognize that this is not, it's not Steve Paikin's investigative reporting that has uncovered stuff. It's not an international financial institution, like the World Bank, that has gone in and said, oh my goodness. This is a Ukrainian institution working in Ukraine with the support of the people of Ukraine and of the Ukrainian parliament. And that, to me, speaks of a healthy society determined to become healthier. So
that's good. That's good. I think I threw up in my mouth. Like it's
no, you should have heard her speak in Ukrainian a lot of the time, and she speaks in Ukrainian, French. She even threw some German in at one point.
I think Eric Trump said he was in Monaco lately, and all he saw was a bunch of supercars there with Ukrainian plates on them. So,
but what she's trying to argue there is that there's corruption in Ukraine, but here's the good news: Ukrainian society weeded it out. They did it because it's a healthy society and all the rest of it. That does miss a little bit of context, which is that there's enormous pressure being put on Zelensky and the Ukrainian government to get rid of corruption. And it's, they keep saying that if you want to be a member of the EU, if you want to keep getting our support for guns, you're going to have to stop the corruption. That's quite an important bit of context, isn't it, that she didn't include. It's not like this was a completely organic, natural, indigenous response. Like, there was a lot of external pressure. But I would also say, I suppose what I often say, you can watch this, go on YouTube, like CPAC or whatever, you can watch this. It's not very long. It's only about 20 minutes. Just have a watch of it and listen to her speak in Ukrainian and listen to the way she speaks about Ukraine. Bear in mind, like, I think half of her family are Ukrainian. I think she's like half Ukrainian, half, what's the other one, Scottish or something? I don't know what it is. But anyway, she obviously speaks fluent Ukrainian. She lived there for a while. I don't know. I just feel she's been given this multi-billion-dollar sack of gold to go and spend wisely in Ukraine. Surely somebody has to ask, because I know nobody in our press will do it. Somebody has to just speak these words and say, are we absolutely 100% certain that we know which team she's going to bat for? Because she undoubtedly has divided loyalties. She's referred to herself in the past as Ukrainian.
And the good news is...
Just put that out there. I don't know. Should we think about that? Or is that beyond the pale? We can't those things.
And the good news is they've said that $4.5 billion, they're not going to detail the spending because it's a national security interest. So, wow. Talk about
totally corrupt, guaranteed to be corruption-free.
And the sad thing is, a lot of the stuff the government releases, like, way later. Like, even right now, we're asking for how much they're spending with Meta, even though they say they're the evil giant. They won't give it to us until January 26th for what they spend in, like in the spring of 25. But here's one from our old friend Chrystia Freeland there when she was the finance minister. They acknowledged yesterday that the then finance minister imposed a $380 million luxury tax without any cost-benefit analysis. Imagine that, introducing a tax without any analysis. Wasn't the taco and tinsel tax too, that the rebate? The tax saw new registration pleasure boats drop by almost a tenth. And they repealed that part, though, on planes and on boats, but they didn't repeal the automobile one. The then Minister Freeland, in her 2021 budget recovery plan for jobs, levied the minimum 10% luxury tax on autos and aircraft over 100,000 and pleasure boats over 250. Isn't that amazing? You can buy no luxury tax on a boat under 250,000, but there is a luxury tax on an automobile over 100,000. Isn't that crazy?
Especially considering how expensive cars are now. Like, lots of cars that aren't really luxury cars are going to get captured.
Yeah. Pickup trucks, like most pickup trucks, are over 100 grand. If you're lucky enough or smart enough to, hardworking enough to afford to spend 100 grand on a car or 250,000 boat, congratulations, Friedland said at the time. You get to spend a little bit more to help to heal the wounds of COVID and invest in our future collective prosperity. The wounds of COVID were interjected into our population by the Liberal government, nonetheless, and their reckless spending brought us inflation and tons of fraud, even including many people that worked at the CRA decided to dip in there because they thought, well, this thing is just like a party that nobody's going to even monitor. And the auto tax
and what
remains.
did the real knockout blow from COVID, which we now know from various studies and the British inquiry that came out recently, the real agony, the real pain and legacy in terms of damage came from the lockdowns, which they pushed. They were all for it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, indeed, if they're so worried about the COVID the damage done to the finances by COVID, then maybe they should cough up some of their own money.
Here's the key point in this. So the people that are buying pickup trucks and that around 100 grand, and that luxury tax on trucks and that, they can't really get around it, because that's not a lot of money. That is, as far as pickup trucks go, that is kind of like the average on a pickup truck, like a diesel truck if you need it for work or whatever. Like that's about the price. But if you're buying a boat over $250,000 or an airplane, that means you probably have more means. And if you don't want to buy in Canada, guess what? Go to the United States, go somewhere else and buy it, right? Because you have means. The guy with a pickup truck, is barely getting by probably. That pickup payment is basically crushing him already. But so they're going to take the taxes off of the boats and the planes because people are going elsewhere to buy them. That's what happens. It's just ludicrous. So really what it is, it's the same thing as their tax audits. They don't go after Brookfield, who they say is escaped about $6.6 billion in taxes. They go after the little guy because they don't even have the lawyers or the aptitude to go after those big ones, right? Same here. Like, why go after the luxury boats and the airplanes when you can just go after the meat there? The meat there is the luxury tax on automobiles. That's why they didn't take that off.
It's also because there are vastly more cars out there, so there's loads more money to be raised from that.
That's where the meat
rather
is.
than the boats. But it acts as cover for what is really just an extra tax on cars, isn't it? But it's like the cover is, this is a tax on yachts. Like, what are you talking about?
And you would think with all the corruption that's being discovered there in Ukraine that we would kind of just pause for a bit. But no, here's Anita Anand, one of the most sanctimonious ones out there. Mark Miller, she gives Mark Miller a run for being sanctimonious. Here's pledging another $235 million to buy U.S. equipment for Ukraine. I thought we'd buy Canada first, but anyway, let's listen to what she has to say.
Why today I am here to make two announcements. First, I am pleased to announce that Canada, alongside several allies, will purchase a package of military capabilities under the Pearl program. This is the NATO vehicle for military support for Ukraine. Canada's contribution to the purchase of this Pearl package will be $200 million, bringing Canada's total contribution to $890 million over the past 6 months. Second, I am announcing that Canada is committing $35 million in security support through the NATO Comprehensive Assistance Package Fund. This brings Canada's contribution to the cap to a total of $180 million. Canada has long supported the open accession process for NATO membership, and we continue to support Ukraine's path towards that end through the NATO process, of course.
Two things there. One, that's what started this war, pushing for Ukraine to go into NATO. Two, when do we apply for aid? Like, we're broke, lady. Like, we're broke. We're flat busted broke, and you continue to spend money. And here's all this fraud going on and corruption going on in Ukraine, and here you pledge more money, and you talk about buy Canadian. This money through this Pearl program buys. This is great news for Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, all those U.S. military suppliers. I mean, they're just like laughing. They're just like, and Trump said it, like, we're not going to give any more money. You can buy U.S. military. You pay for it, and you can give it to them. But we're not giving them anything.
And it's old stuff they don't want anyway, the Americans. But it's like, how is this government resisting the giant nefarious American octopus when we're just gonna chuck them $235 million basically directly. Another way to look at this is we're kind of bribing the Americans so that the Americans will give something to Ukraine. That's kind of like what this is.
It's ridiculous.
How the hell did we end up in this situation? Is it Canada's? Did Canada contribute to creating tensions in Eastern Europe? I seem to think that was George W. Bush and Barack Obama to a lesser extent. I seem to remember that being the Americans. The Americans were the primary sponsors of this nonsense, talking about bringing Georgia into NATO and things like that and freaking out the trigger-happy Russians. A lot of it goes back to America. But many years later, and we're giving money to the Americans to keep this war going. It's just like, it's beyond, it wouldn't be fiction, would it? Because it's just so crazy. It's such a ridiculous world sometimes.
Looks like that Governor General is really hot on making that climate change resistant skating rink, Rideau Hall there. So now they're doling out tax credits. So we did the story yesterday. Governor General Mary Simon and her wife promised federally regulated companies a charitable tax deduction credit for money donated to build this $4 million skating pavilion at her official residence. Yes, you must like skating. At least $350,000 in contractors' pay was funneled through a registered charity to generate a tax credit, a record show. The Canada CRA yesterday said it would not say whether the skiing complied with federal law. The Governor General's office did not comment when asked if it consulted the Revenue Agency's Charities Directorate. Cost estimates for this Fantasyland skating rink between $4 and $8 million. Does anybody just have a pulse on where Canada's at, just where it's at for people getting laid off and all this stuff, and yet she wants a skating rink at her official residence? like anybody?
It's a good question that you asked. Do they know? Another way to phrase it, does the ruling elite, people in charge of Canada, do they actually know what's going on in this country? Do they actually think and feel how they're experiencing life? I'm inclined to say no. Another excerpt from that Chrystia Freeland speech earlier, she said, this is so revealing, by the way. She said she went to Europe to talk about Ukraine. She's like, and when I was speaking to Europeans, I got this feeling that, they were really keen on defending Ukraine and they really wanted us to keep it up. And I was thinking, when you say speak, you mean Ursula von der Leyen and people like that, don't you? You mean you spoke to aristocrats and the governing elite, and then you come back and you say, yeah, I've been speaking to Europeans. You haven't been speaking to Europeans. What are you talking about? You don't speak to real people. And I think, when does the Governor General go out and sort of take the temperature of the room in an average sort of, I don't know, grocery store somewhere in Saskatchewan? It's just the disconnect is so profound now that basically explains everything, or explains a great deal.
And you know what? The former Speaker of the House there, Greg Fergus, when they were told that they were supposed to cut back on their junkets, Greg Fergus says, good one, as he spent close to $300,000 in junkets in his year as a Speaker of the House. Isn't that amazing? Hey, isn't that impressive?
Including a spring break to Jamaica.
$300,000 on world travel. Well, I thought climate change, wasn't it Mark Miller? Who was that other guy saying you can't even go on a vacation because of climate change? It wasn't Mark Miller, was that the guy from, can't remember his name now, another Liberal MP, said that going on a vacation with your motorhome was going to destroy the planet. But apparently...
Mark Holland.
Yeah, Mark Holland, that's the guy. Apparently, not Greg Fergus and his $300,000 that he spent in 1 year just on junkets, including the spring break in Jamaica. Why not, though? Why not? The Canadian taxpayer has lots of money. The purpose of the visit to Jamaica, Grenada, Barbados. Nice places, too, eh? Isn't that nice choices? Jamaica, Grenada, Barbados. But they were there to strengthen bilateral.
Sounds like that Beach Boys song, doesn't it?
But he went there for bilateral. Got to put that word in there, bilateral and parliamentary relations with these countries. What does that mean even, right? And that's what he wrote in his report. That's what he signed on the receipt.
It means stop looking.
Hey, that's what he signed on his receipt. That's what we're there for. Including a 4-day trip that he spent $27,000. Can you imagine spending $27,000 in 4 days for you and your family? Like what? You don't even probably know how to spend $27,000 in 4 days just for rooms and food, eh? The Jamaican trip.
Well, I could hire a politician. That's how I'd spend that money. I know for sure that it would all get spent.
He also went to Algeria, Austria, Estonia, Finland, Kenya, Poland, Rwanda, and Ukraine. Why not? Why not? Why
taking a safari, maybe, just to make sure those bilateral relations are being boosted as you look at the lion and the elephant.
But he said it was a difficult time for him in that role. You know, it's his first year, and, you know, there was a couple dents. You know, remember he had some couple of, moments there where he was definitely supposed to be non-biased, but yeah. 290.
Yeah, he's the one that turfed Polyev, didn't he? Kicked Polyev out of the House of Commons that time.
$297,000. Well-traveled. There used to be a TV show, a gunslinger show, Have Gun, Will Travel. He was just like, will travel. That's what his thing did. Will travel. You buy, you pay, will travel. And hey, if you haven't had enough, none of these stories are on. Do you think this story is on CBC? $297,000 on junkets for the Speaker of the House, the then Speaker. Do you think that's on CBC? I can guarantee.
CBC don't consider that news. It's like, oh, he was merely conducting necessary work in his office.
Let's see if CBC covers this one. More than 700 foreign criminals at large. That's what the Canada Border Services said yesterday. The agency said it already deported 845 foreign criminals in the past year. If they already know they're criminals, why are they here still? They said this is what the Vice President of Enforcement said, Aaron McCory. I liken our inventories to a bathtub. We are constantly scooping water out of the bathtub, but the bathtub keeps filling up. Okay. Testifying at that Commons Public Safety Committee, they said 33,000 foreign fugitives in Canada. 33,000 foreign fugitives in Canada. About 2.2% of the people in that 33,000 inventory are associated with criminality, equivalent to about 726 people. There are varying degrees. So there you go. There are varying degrees of criminality. You know, it could be crimes just committed overseas and were discovered here. It could be crimes committed here. Who knows? Who cares?
Well,
right?
I think, would you also count as a fugitive if you overstayed your visa? I think it's higher than that, isn't it, for people that have overstayed their visa? Crazy. I mean, I remember, I will never forget speaking to an RCMP officer about a case in British Columbia of somebody, of a guy who was meant to go on trial, just disappeared, flew to India. And they put out a press release saying, have you seen this guy? Have you seen this man? And I remember just saying, I phoned up the police. And I was like, how did this happen? Like, how do you get on a plane as a criminal who's, an alleged criminal awaiting trial? And he was like, oh, we don't stop them. We don't do anything like that. It'll be CBSA. CBSA don't stop them, obviously, either. They don't even know. And it's like, what a laugh. The funny thing is, I just feel like the criminal class knew how easy it was to commit crimes and just get away with it in Canada. They would just come here on crime holidays, wouldn't they?
How about this for an excuse? Like, say if you committed a crime and they put you in jail. The agency already completed about 30,000 removal interviews this year. Reasons where the removal may not be immediate include allowing people to arrange their personal affairs, seeing through the holidays, let's say Christmas or another holiday, or letting their children finish school or recover from surgery. So if you're a criminal and you're about to be deported, just say, well, hey, you know what? It's Christmas, man. Or my kid's got to finish school. And the guy's like, okay. Well, you say that when the judge says you're going to jail. Hey, Chinese, man, it's Christmas. What's that?
If you're Chinese, you just say, come on, man, it's the year of the rat. Like, there's still 10 months left. This is a religious observance for me.
We're going to play a little bit of this clip from Don Davies from the Parliamentary Press Gallery, because there's a lot of real moments in this one, but we won't play the whole thing. We'll just play a little bit till we've had enough.
Good evening, distinguished guests, colleagues, and members of the Press Gallery. My name is Don Davies, and my pronouns are broke and irrelevant.
Good, that's good. I advise you to go listen to that whole one. You know what? There's probably more truth spoken at this parliamentary press gallery function, which is like, who's paying for that? We wonder as well. And there's more truth spoken there than there was spoken most of the time at the podium, because they're hiding under the guise of humor. But you know, from Poilievre and from Carney and from Don Davies there and Blanchette and all
Carney, I mean, I feel like Pierre, I watched Pierre's, I haven't seen Don Davies, but I watched Pierre's and I watched Mark Carney's. I feel like Carney did a better job of sort of taking on the spirit of the evening. Like, he mocked himself relentlessly and he was talking about, like, he even talked about this, you know, he was saying, final point, but it's not going to be my final point. I'm actually going to make a lot more points. You know, he's just saying that he doesn't speak clearly. He's like, and I gave a very vague answer. He also said a really strange comment where he was like saying thank you to the press gallery for, I can't remember how he phrased it, but something like excusing liberal racism or something like that. It was like, he was like really mocking himself to an extraordinary extent. Whereas
Don Davies one was hilarious.
Pierre Poilievre didn't really do that.
Don Davies was hilarious for sure. Like, he was very good at what he did. But
well, I suppose that he's not got much of an ego to protect, has he? Because he's not going to be the leader. He's just an interim leader. But I feel like Pierre let himself down because everybody says that's like one of his weaknesses, that he's a bit too egotistical and a bit too defensive. And he did try a little bit. Like, he did make a joke about that. He said like as his likability. He made jokes about that, but it wasn't quite the same. Whereas Mark Carney was, he just went all in. He was just totally exposed it's almost like we wrote the speech. That's what it was like for Mark Carney. It was pretty.
That's what I'm saying. You get more reality out of this parliamentary press gallery than you do when you stand at the podium.
Definitely.
Turns out the Auditor General doesn't have some very nice things to say about Doug Ford and the election. Let's listen to what she has to say here.
This Auditor General's report is a damning indictment of this government's priorities. $111.7 million. That's how much the government spent on advertising between April 2024 and March 2025. It has tripled. 6 out of 10 ads were partisan ads. The Auditor General herself said that $43 million worth of ads were focused on polishing up Doug Ford's image instead of actually helping Ontarians. That is the highest that a government has spent ever on advertising.
That's from the NDP there, Marit Stiles, speaking about the Auditor General report on Doug Ford. Spending money like a drunken sailor. Again, it's your money. Who cares?
Come on, folks. Yeah, I got to spend a little bit of money now and then. That's what he would say as he pulls the Crown Royal down.
Here's, a lot of people saying that the problem is only to deal with BC and some parts of Quebec, this land decisions on the unceded land. And here, Chief Jean White Duck saying the Ottawa Valley and Ontario and Quebec, that they're going to challenge for that as well. So Pandora's box is wide open, David Eby. And maybe that's what he wanted, right? We're not going to, just in the interest of time, we're not going to play that clip, but we are going to play this clip here from Olivia
I will say,
Chow.
sorry, just to interrupt you briefly, that land claim includes my house. Just as a bit of context.
There you go.
But it's not like, it's a weird one. This one is much further down the line. This one's been negotiated with the Ontario government, and it's not going to, they say anyway, they say it's not going to affect private property, and it's just going to be, it's like creating a sort of, almost like a park, like a provincial park thing. It's a lot more complicated than this person on Twitter makes it seem.
Olivia Chow wants more money from, if you live in Toronto, if you happen to have a house worth more than $3 million, which is what, an apartment in Toronto? Like, it's probably not that much. Let's see what Olivia Chow has to say.
As I prepare the 2026 budget, I'm focused on one question. How do we make life more affordable for everyday families while giving average homeowners a break? I'm proposing that the wealthiest 2% of property buyers, just half of 1% of Toronto residents, contribute a bit more so we can invest in the services families relied on. For too many Toronto families, after paying their rent or mortgage, there's not much left at the end of the month. In these uncertain times,
maybe less dancing. Maybe less dancing. Maybe more focusing.
Yeah, I was wondering, like, is she on a tranquilizer or something there? Never heard her so calm.
Toronto's already suffering, and this lady has no idea what she's doing. And again, you're just going to force people out of the city of Toronto, and then people are going to have enough of this nonsense. And the amount of money that they spend on just, like, I don't know how much her dance lessons cost, but obviously too much.
Maybe she's given them.
We got some BC news for you.
Live from the Now Media Newsroom.
Elon Musk has even chimed in on this. It's a man who raped a 3-month-old baby, who was a teenager at the time, and drowned a 3-year-old, was given breast implants while he was in jail by the BC government, and then moved into the female prison because of, he's transitioning, and then assaulted a woman in the women's penitentiary. And then this you can go look it on the internet there, and this guy went in there to confront the NDP on it, and then he was talking to them about it, and they said in the office he went to, well, he asked for meetings, they wouldn't give him a meeting, so he just went to the office. And then they said that they felt unsafe talking to him because he didn't see it their way.
It's too strange. It's almost too strange to believe, isn't it? It's just so strange in British Columbia. British Columbia, it has to be, and I'm not exaggerating it has to be one of the weirdest places on the planet, in terms of, and when I say BC, I really mean Vancouver, Victoria. Just in terms of like social attitudes and the sort of thing that goes on there. I mean, what the hell?
What do you think about if you're in a male jail, in a male population, and you're sentenced for life? I don't know what your sentence is. And you could if you could go into your life's already basically done. You're in jail forever. If you could just get breast implants, so then you can move into the female jail. What would you do?
Yeah, I mean, much less likely to get beat up by women than men, I suppose. So you'd probably be safer.
Plus, you might get some,
Well, bit of that. I mean, that's certainly gone on in. Look, isn't it funny how England is great and we learn everything from England, don't we? Apparently, Mark Carney keeps telling us, and all the ministers keep telling us how great England is. That like most of them went to university there. They want to go there and live like Chrystia Freeland, or they just want to be there constantly, like Mark Carney. Why aren't we following England on the trans thing then? Because in Britain, the Supreme Court ruled that a man is a biological male and a woman is a biological female. These organizations in Britain, like the Girl Guides, like Boy Scouts, everything, they're all now enforcing that sort of sex rules based on sex. You have to have been born a male to join the Boy Scouts. And why is Canada not following in that regard? I wonder. Like, why is Britain just like Britain's not cool then? We don't listen to them when they do things like that.
And if you want some more comedy, here's Premier Eby on toxic drugs wreaking havoc on BC streets.
Premier, we've opened involuntary mental health care in our prisons where many people are struggling who have addiction issues, brain injuries, mental health issues. We've identified a site in Surrey and a site in Prince George where we're working to open additional involuntary care beds. At 17 different hospitals across the province, we've either expanded or renovated involuntary care beds. So what the member says simply is not correct. We've opened 760 additional addiction beds, voluntary addiction beds in this province to provide people with the care they need. We've amended the decriminalization initiative to make sure that if someone's at home and they've overdosed, they feel secure calling for an ambulance. They're not worried they're going to lose their job, but to keep people safe in our parks and our streets by criminalizing public drug use. We're going to continue to do this work. This is not an easy issue It's not an issue we're going to solve overnight. People are...
Members.
The drugs are...
Members.
Speaker, the drugs are more toxic than they've ever been. This recent batch was mixed with, I'm told, horse tranquilizer, Honourable Speaker. These drug dealers have no conscience. They have no shame, and they are killing their customers, Honourable Speaker.
Stop there, yeah, stop there. Who would have thought drug dealers would have no conscience? Who would have thought, eh? Who would have thought that,
And who would have thought when we catch them, they get barely any sentences, any punishment either? What does that make us then, as a society? So if drug dealers are the worst of the worst, what does that make us if when we catch them, we barely punish them? Does that make us bad too? I think it might. It might make you bad, Mr. Eby.
BC government announces new policy requiring medical witness for state-supplied opioid use. A medical witness will have to observe drug users taking opioid pills given to them by the BC government starting this month. The BC's NDP Health Minister, Josie Osborne, said this new policy, which will go into effect December 30, will save lives. Where have you heard that before? The BC government said there will be exemptions to this policy for people in exceptional circumstances, of course.
You know, where you just were, in Japan, I'm sure you observed with your own eyes, but if you want to read the statistics as well, they don't have anything like this, like the drug problem. And they also have extremely harsh punishments for people that deal drugs, as do many other countries in Asia.
Yesterday, I emceed a Bitcoin event downtown at the Innovation Center, which is basically right downtown. And I had to park, a block and a half away, and it was 6 o'clock at night, 6 o'clock. Dark though already. And as you approach the darkest day of the year in December here. And I walked a block and a half. And sure enough, I met up with somebody that was not friendly and maybe not in the right mind. And, definitely threatening. And that's at 6 o'clock. I would not walk the streets in Kelowna at 3 p.m. or 3 a.m. willingly. I just wouldn't do it. I mean, I had a flat tire once and I continued to drive because at 3 in the morning, I continued to drive on the flat tire to get to work because I said, there's no way I'm going to be changing a tire in Kelowna in the middle of the night with my back to the road. In Tokyo, I went out almost every night for a walk at 3 a.m. because that's what time I get up at 3 a.m. I went out and walk in different areas of Tokyo all by myself at 3 a.m. and felt no fear whatsoever.
In the biggest city in the world as well, we should say.
The largest city in the world. And there wasn't a lot of people in this, I didn't see a lot of cops, didn't see a lot of anything. And, there was people walking around, but it never once did I feel threatened or feel fear at all. In a strange city that I'd never been to before. And I went to different areas of the city. I just didn't, walk around the hotel. I went through areas that were full of tiny shops and stuff like that. But I wouldn't
People
do
say
that
the same thing about Dubai as well. I mean, my parents are in Southeast Asia now, and I've been there, and I felt the same. Even like relatively, definitely poor countries like Laos. I remember walking around Luang Prabang, and it was just like, it's just fine. Really late at night. I mean, to a very great extent, this situation we're in is a choice. It's optional.
Policies. It's what we tolerate. It's our policies. And here's more bad news for British Columbia. Another BC pulp mill permanently shutting down. Devastating news in this community. And that's the Crofton. 350 people losing their jobs. Again, those are tough jobs to lose. Tough to replace. Those are good jobs. Those are, people buy trucks and they buy houses and build families with those jobs. And they're not easily transferable. And, you're going to have, David Eby or Melanie Jolie strawman Trump on this stuff. BC's forest industry was in shambles long before Donald Trump was elected. This is on the BC NDP.
Well, certainly they've been criticized enough, haven't they, by people in the industry for not making enough trees available, which, as we've said so many times, is just almost impossible to believe.
Next slide there too, and it's just they basically, and that's in the Cowichan Valley there, the Crofton Mill shutting down permanently. Lots of people, I know lots of people that work in the forest industry. I worked as a 16-year-old, I started full-time in the mill. I worked as pulling on boards on the green chain is one of the things I did, and I later worked in a mill in northern Alberta, high level actually. That's a lot of jobs and a lot of pain for a lot of people. And no amount of standing there posturing is going to make a difference, right? Like when...
And it's not like there's a lot of jobs there either, is there? Or like other industries to go into Cowichan Valley. I mean, there's tourism, but otherwise there's not. It's not like you can just drift into another job.
And I was going to play the clip by Adrian Dix, but what's the point? They just say nonsense that means nothing. Means nothing. It's time for change. We got our international news segment.
Live from the Now Media Newsroom.
Yeah, lots on Trump. And this is Trump on Zelensky, the amount of money that's been stolen that was given as aid. And a lot of that is even linked right into Zelensky's own office. Let's listen in here.
We have a problem with a war that our people are trying to settle now with Russia and Ukraine. We are not involved in the war monetarily anymore. Biden gave away $350 billion like it was candy. That's a massive amount of money. And much of it in cash, a lot of it in equipment. I don't give away anything. We sell the equipment to NATO. The European nations pay us for the equipment, 100% price. And then they bring it to Ukraine or whatever they do with it. But we're trying to get that settled. I've settled 8 wars. This would be the 9th, and our people are over in Russia right now to see if we can get it settled. Not an easy situation, let me tell you. What a mess. It's a war that never would have happened if I were president. Not even a chance. And it didn't happen for 4 years.
And then I was going to play this clip, but I don't know. In the interest of time, Putin's saying that it sounds like he's saying, I mean, we don't know what he says. He says that the Europeans are trying to prevent Trump from achieving peace through negotiations. We won't even play the clip here. Won't go through that. But we will play from Mark Ruther. NATO is going to spend $1 billion a month in 2026 to supply weapons to Ukraine for its war. Good news for America, right? Let's play this clip from Mark Ruther.
That's really great news. So a lot of pledges have come in, and I hope I can make a few announcements later today. Pledges made today. And when you look at the overall numbers, as I said yesterday, we are now at 4 billion. So that means we are really on track for the 1 billion a month, August, September, October, November. And I'm cautiously optimistic that we will reach the 5 billion for the full year. And then for next year, we need for the full year, again, a lot of money, at least 1 billion, maybe even a little bit more than 1 billion a month. It might be around 50, maybe a little bit more for the whole year. When it comes to this crucial US gear, so this is offensive and defensive, including interceptors for the air defense systems, crucial to keep Ukrainian civilians and civilian infrastructure safe. So it is really good that this flow is there, that Europeans are stepping up, and Canada, by the way, also doing a lot here. So really, really glad that this is working.
Did you hear what he said? For U.S. gear. Raytheon and those are just like, yep, let's keep going. $1 billion.
But my question there is, what does a $1 billion a month subscription to Lockheed Martin or Raytheon or whatever, what does that actually get you? I can't imagine it's that much, really. Military gear is so expensive, isn't it? It's insanely expensive. What's that going to get? I mean, just as an idea of how expensive it is, when the Americans fire a couple of cruise missiles off or something like that to hit Iran or whatever it is, that's usually tens of millions of dollars just in that sort of ordnance, just to bomb someone. So what does the billion get you? I can't imagine it's much. And I mean, it'd probably get you quite a few AK-47s, but.
The aircraft carrier, I believe, is not that a lot of people have aircraft carriers, and the Americans have 11, I believe. They're about like $5 billion just for an aircraft carrier, and then I think it's $100 million a month just to maintain that thing. I think there's maintenance costs. There's 6,000 people that live on those aircraft carriers, but Canada doesn't need an aircraft carrier because we don't have any aircraft to put on it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but we could put some politicians on it to talk about how great it is.
Maybe Greg Fergus could use it as a ship to go sail around the Caribbean.
And it wouldn't be on the luxury tax because they got rid of that. It'd be fine.
That's right. You wouldn't even get a luxury tax on it. But here, this one here is blows you away. This one here, how long has this war been going on now? 2+ years? Ukraine war?
What, the Ukraine one? 4 years.
4 years.
February.
4 years. There you go. 4 years and come February. Finally, I was gonna play the clip, but we won't. Ursula von der Leyen says that they're gonna finally turn off the tap to Russian energy. What? Like, you can't even make this stuff up. They were funding the Russians to fight the Ukrainians, and then funding, you know what I mean? They're funding Ukraine to fight Russia, and they're funding Russia to fight Ukraine.
And look at her quote there. Read her quote out.
We were paying Russia 12 billion euros per month.
So 12 billion to Russia, 1 billion to Ukraine. Come
per
on,
month
lads.
at the beginning of the war for fossil fuels. We're now down to 1.5 billion per month.
So now it's fair. Now they're giving Ukraine and Russia the same amount.
It's like Putin's like, yeah, you know, it's like a clown show. It's absolutely ludicrous. They did this to themselves.
It's a clown
as
show,
well.
but the clowns aren't there to make you laugh. They're not trying to be funny. The clowns are trying to tell you how to live your life and trying to tell you like how to wear your clothes and what to eat and all kinds of things, and watching you as you go on your phone to make sure you don't go on any bad websites. It's like evil clowns.
Ray Davies says Ukraine is a puppet. No, Ukraine is a sandbox for these people to wage war, and they sacrifice Ukrainian youth into the meat grinder.
Ukraine as well, by the way, just to go back to Chrystia Freeland again, she was talking about how what a great investment it'll be to invest money in Ukraine, and like it's going to be booming, it's going to be great when the war's over and all that. It's like, really? You really think that? Like, I honestly don't know how Ukraine is going to recover from this, ever. I don't know how it's ever going to recover. It's been such a devastating war to a country that was already so vulnerable. It was already so fragile. Demographics, as Trump would say, like you wouldn't believe. They just had some of the worst demographics in the world because all their young people had left and people had stopped having kids. So they had this like completely wrecked demographic structure. When the war's over, I would be fairly confident that they're going to lose more young people. And if they join the European Union, they're just going to go to Germany, aren't they? They're going to move to Western Europe like the Romanians did and the Poles and the Bulgarians. I'm very concerned about Ukraine. When peace is achieved, it's going to be in such a bad way for a very long time.
I do interviews with Dennis Storchuk, like every month or so on Ukraine, and we've had a Ukrainian soldier on. We've had another youth that's, looking to head back as he turns 18. And he said, we were just talking yesterday about possible peace, and he said, like Zelensky, for him, if peace comes, there'll be an election, and he won't win the election. And right now, he's in a great place. He's got power. He travels the world. Look at where he goes. He goes all around the world fundraising. And that's what he does. And he's not going to win an election. So why would he want?
Well, it'd be a tough one, certainly.
Why would you want to lose? Why would you want to settle? If it knows that it means that this podium time. Remember when the COVID lockdowns here, even in British Columbia, with Bonnie Henry standing at the podium every day? Why would they relinquish that power? They never did willingly, right? You fly in a helicopter every day. She was flying back and forth, standing at the podium, telling you what you can and can't do. And BC was one of the last places to let go. People hang on to
in
power.
the world. Yeah.
People hang on to power.
But it's the same argument, by the way, is being made about Benjamin Netanyahu from progressive activists and left-wing activists. They're saying, in Israel as well, I should say, as well as in the West, they're saying, Netanyahu's just been continuing all these conflicts with Israel because he knows that once they're over, he'll be out of power and he could even be in jail because he's got trials looming. So that's not exactly, it's not as far out as some people might assume, Certainly as well, if you look at history, there have been times where that's been true, I think, where people have hung on. Like they've sort of fused their own position in power with the war, the crisis, or whatever it is, and they've tried to sort of extend the crisis.
Well, I mean, this one, next piece of news here is this one I have to salute and say this is what we need in Canada as well. This is definitely a leg up for youth. And this is Trump announcing tens of millions of children will be receiving $1,000 each, funded by a donation from billionaire Michael Dell and seed money from the Trump administration. Dell donated $6.25 billion for the effort. 18 Americans will gain access to the account, so they get to, which will have been invested since their birth. So they're going to get money at birth. I think this is going to affect kids 10 and under right now. And they're going to get $1,000 put in their account. You can put more in. Dell's donation will cover children under 10 in zip codes with an average income of $150,000 or less. So that's a majority of the population. And this is a great way to give young people a leg up because, you know, if they invest that in the stock market, this could be worth a lot of money by the time these kids are of age to take that for their college education or whatever, a house or whatever they want. And they're called Trump accounts because he loves himself. And they'll begin on America's 250th birthday, July 4th. What a birthday present for the youth. And that's something that we could use here in Canada. Imagine that, because financial literacy is one thing that lacks in most countries. And they are starting that in Florida as well. They're starting financial literacy in the high schools, and that is something that should be everywhere. But that's not what they talk about here in Canada. They talk about how they need to, what do they talk about in high schools here? Gender ideology, all this other stuff, pronouns and that, instead of like...
Certainly land acknowledgements and this idea that you should feel a kind of inherited guilt for events 400 years ago. I know that for sure because I've seen it on in my kids' school, on the walls and stuff like that. Yeah. Extraordinary.
It sounds like Kevin Hassett is going to succeed Jerome Powell here in the spring. And I won't play that clip either, but anyway, it's just that. And then, so the Trump administration's actually going to, we won't play this clip either. He's just talking about, he was going at the media, but they're actually going to start a fact or a fake news fact check thing of their own. So that's interesting. Intel, Trump got Intel running like crazy as well. Intel up huge because they gave 10% of Intel to the American government, and it's already worth billions of dollars. We'll play that small clip there too, just on Intel. Isn't Canada a big chip maker? Isn't that what Carney said? Canada's a chip maker.
Carney thinks so.
Did someone tell him it was like Frito-Lay chips, or what kind of chips were we making? But I didn't know Intel. Well, let's play this clip here from their They had a big cabinet meeting yesterday.
I can't be more proud of how you did it, sir. You've created the greatest cabinet. It is a joy to be at this table.
You know, one thing we will mention, so they came to see me from Intel, and they had a problem. I said, look, we'll fix your problem, but I think the United States is entitled to 10% of your company. And the chairman looked at me and he goes, you have a deal. Tell them, how much money have we made since I made that deal?
It's only $40 billion.
$40 billion.
Good. Jolie hands the money out like crazy. Trump rakes it in.
How could you tolerate that as Trump? How could you tolerate that kind of obsequiousness and that kind of fawning? Like, you've done it. You made the greatest cabinet. I just feel like, I was like, shut up. Stop, please.
We're going to skip these next ones just in the interest of time because I did want to get to some tech stuff because we're going to skip all this Trump stuff actually. I want to show you this thing on tech. Let's go to like Tesla's here. We're going to go to the robot. In May of 2023, we're going to play this little clip here, what the robot Optimus was moving like in 2023. This is the good news section, 2023. This is Optimus at the top part of the screen, if we can play this. Turn off the music, yeah, thank you. And that's Optimus right now in December 2025. Look at in the top, 23, and there's Optimus on the bottom. Okay, next clip, and this shows the Optimus at full speed. Let's go with this one here. We're gonna get it here. It's coming. That's at 25% speed, just to show you the gait and the flexion. And here's 100. Well, we were going to do it, and then maybe not. Anyway, 50% speed, and then here's 25, and then it should be 100% here at some point. Runs better than me. Here's the 100%. There you go. Yeah, there you go.
That's the real like jogger gate.
And then here's another one from Tesla, and I believe this is the most important company on the planet right now. Tesla, China shows off, turn off the music, Giga Shanghai speed now rolling on a car every, ready for this? Take a guess. Every 30 seconds, a car rolls out the door. What?
Wow.
No music, there you go. Come on.
I love one.
30 seconds, just like making pancakes.
But we can't have them, can we? Not here, because
Sam
China.
Altman on Fox News has admitted what most tech CEOs won't say out loud. AI is already diagnosing diseases doctors couldn't. Kids are getting. Let's play this clip here from Sam Altman.
Best case and worst case scenario, because you've been honest about the potential harm that could come from AI. What should we know?
Society's been through things like this many, many times. You know, we've been through the Industrial Revolution, we've been through the Computer Revolution. One thing that I think you can learn studying history is it's not always obvious what the pluses and minuses are going to be, but I'll tell you our current best guess. On the plus side, people are using these tools already today as AI medical advisors. You hear from people who they couldn't diagnose some disease they had, and they had all these weird symptoms, and ChatGPT helped them. You hear from people who are using this as like an AI tutor. They're learning things they couldn't learn before. You hear people who...
Changing the world. Canada could be part of it.
I wonder if he can use ChatGPT to fix his voice so that he could get rid of that vocal fry. It annoys me so much every time I listen to him speak. But he's in a bit of trouble, isn't he? Apparently, I've been reading, because they're really nervous about Google since Google have upped their game so dramatically, haven't they? Allegedly, he's freaking out.
It's a race. It's an absolute race, and it's not just between.
And
Google.
That's a good thing.
It's not just between Google and XAI and OpenAI and all these other ones. It's China. You know, the people say we need to slow down. There's no slowing down. There is no slowing down. Here's a really
and that's
cool
why,
thing.
if you're wondering why they're buying nuclear power plants and stuff and trying to resurrect them and trying to get power by any means, that's it. And that's part of the race.
Absolutely it. Because they wouldn't fire up 3 Mile Island again, ever, if it wasn't for just like whatever. You know what I mean? Like you said yesterday was an important point. If China thought they needed more power and they could get 1 million citizens just riding on bikes with generators, they would do it. They would force you to ride a bike until you passed out.
But here we have this strange situation where politicians who've devoted their lives to being anti-energy, anti-fossil fuels, like Mark Carney, all of a sudden he's like, yeah, build a pipeline, get the natural gas. It's like, I can't help but reckon that those two things are related. Like, they've got the memo, haven't they, in the sort of Western elite. They need to dramatically increase the amount of energy that we generate.
Here's the thing that I'll say. We don't have a mission statement in Canada. We don't have a mission statement. And the United States now has a mission statement. Their mission is to advance technology at the nth speed. And China's doing it already. They recognize that China's doing it, and they know that they need to go, right? You know, we talked about yesterday, SpaceX is putting in a new launch pad. SpaceX leads the world in that. The United States leads in so many areas. Canada leads in, I don't know what it leads in, virtue signaling and identity politics, carbon capture it's going to lead in. Like, tell me what Canada leads in right now.
Self-satisfaction.
Sanctimonious politicians, whatever you want to call it. Here's another one, and I've experienced the boring tunnels, and here's another one. Boring is radically lowering the cost of tunneling from billions per mile to millions. They even beat the average cost of above-ground highway. It's a game changer, and I think they're in New Orleans right now, or Nashville, I believe it is, putting some tunnels in that they couldn't get done on above-ground rail and transport. And this boring company, it looks like a spaceship, doesn't it? But that's the front face of the proof rock, and it just grinds away and digs tunnels.
It's pretty amazing, isn't it? Like, the boring company, you don't hear much about it, but it's very, very cool, I must say.
It's boring. I've been in the boring tunnels. I've been in the boring tunnels in Vegas, and it's pretty wild. Like these Teslas are like ants. They come out of these holes, and then you just get into one, and then you just go and you get out. Like in Vegas, it's very hard to move around in the traffic there, but you go underground in the boring tunnels, you're there lickety split.
And it's just Teslas. They're the only cars allowed in.
Well, it's his company, Boring Tesla.
Right. But you can't even pay to get in as a, Honda driver.
Nope. And the Teslas will be...
that's pretty funny.
And the Teslas will be robo-taxis shortly. They'll be doing, because they had drivers in them. But shortly they will be just autonomous. Anthropic preparing to go public in 2026 in what's expected the biggest IPO in history. I don't use Anthropic, but a lot of people do. Anthropic currently, and this thing will probably even go higher than that. Everybody wants, because you can't buy into OpenAI right now unless you buy through Microsoft. You buy Microsoft, which is a big holder of OpenAI. But here's Anthropic ready to go wild. And this one here, this is these are the glasses that are coming. This is the Google glasses and stuff like that. And this is pretty cool to watch. And this is what, when I was in Tokyo, it would be great to have glasses that can do this. They do have some coming already that can do this. I'm just going to play this clip here. And this is Google's AI, actually.
Hey, Gemma, this is my 2000.
You can play the sound.
Oil change?
Yeah, absolutely. What kind of oil and filter do you have on hand? And do you have the right tools, like a wrench for the drain plug and an oil filter wrench?
Yeah, I got the Castrol 5W4 you recommended and the correct oil filter, and I have the correct tool for the oil filter housing.
Great, you've got everything we need. To get started, let's get the car lifted and access the oil drain plug.
Okay, and where's the oil filter?
The oil filter is located on the front of the engine, right below the intake manifold. It's always a good idea to remove...
So you notice how the glasses are highlighting the areas that you got to open? when you lift the car up, it highlights too and tells you. So these glasses are going to do, like, basically be your assistant. And that's what Meta's talking about too. That's what Zuckerberg is talking about. He wants to be able to have his assistant live with you all the time, so that the assistant is always on and assisting you throughout the day. And it's the same thing. I use Grok quite a bit, Aura, and the same thing there. You can actually talk with Aura throughout the day as well. And these glasses, like saying if you're in Tokyo for interpreting, like you'll hear, they'll speak in their language, but you'll hear it and like it'll interpret it for you, right?
All I think when I hear you say what you've just said, when I watch videos like that, is so many people are going to lose their jobs. Like, so many people are going to be redundant. Like translators, you know how much money goes into that around the world? And all of a sudden, just to have like the universal translator from Star Trek, that's a lot of people out of work, isn't it?
Well, I don't know what to say. It's happening. There could be more jobs.
I'm not trying to attach.
Hey, it could 10x.
There was no value judgment there. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I think that the point is 10x yourself by understanding. And I can tell you this, I started in the accounting firm as an accounting student fresh out of school. When I went through college, computers, we had one computer lab in all of NAIT, just one lab that you could go into, had computers with floppy disks and move around. So I got a job in a CA firm. And at that time, computers were just starting, I think, 386s. Some older people here will recognize that, 386s. And floppy disks that you carry from office to office, like DOS. It was still a DOS system. Windows for workgroups was just starting, and I created the first Windows for workgroups daisy chain network there, and then later became an NT certified person. Then I did the NT networks and all that kind of stuff. So I was early in on this computer stuff. And at that time, they said it was people were gonna lose a lot of jobs and computerization and all that stuff. The internet came, and it created new industries that weren't there before too, right? So it created things that you couldn't even imagine that were possible. So maybe that's coming as well. It'll create new industries, new things to do. And so we have to be open to that, because like I said, I was there for the beginning of the internet. I was on Freenet. I don't know if you remember Freenet. Freenet was like, that's how the internet started. It was between universities. It was a DOS prompt basically, and you would just type in stuff, and you're just like, it was brutal. But
that's a little bit before my time, but I can certainly remember the early days. Yeah,
I was one of
I suppose what you're saying there is like it creates a lot more space for artistic people as well and creative people, doesn't it? Like that's something that's quite important.
And then I was one of the first guys to sign up for the Windows, I think Windows 95 it was, Windows Internet, like with a full browser, Netscape and all that stuff, you know. And then and I was so excited, and I started downloading my first image. I think it was a Sports Illustrated cover, you know. I was a young guy, and it took like a half an hour, one pixel at a time.
Yeah, like doing the line, like it would go along almost like Snake, wouldn't it?
And I remember that screeching browser because I started investing in the stock market back then. That was internet was great for that, and that that connection.
And also just suddenly being disconnected. And then shouting down like, who's on the phone?
Or your wife picks up the phone or something like that, and you're just like, what? I went through 3 divorces. I mean, three wives like that. No, I've only had one wife, but yeah. Sometimes you felt like it. Anyway.
But I never thought, you don't think that you're living through history, do you? But I guess that was kind of like history. Somebody says here, by the way, I just wanted to point out, somebody says, that's why the trades are so important when we're talking about losing jobs and stuff.
Trades are important.
I mean, yeah, I generally agree with that. But you look at that Google. That's somebody that's doing something that a mechanic would do. Being a mechanic, that's the trades, isn't it? Yeah. Obviously, there are more complicated tasks that a mechanic would perform. But if more people are doing that kind of thing, that's going to mean there'll be fewer mechanics, surely. So I don't even know. Are the trades completely invulnerable to this? I don't know, really.
One thing I do know that if Canada doesn't get its stuff together, we're going to lose a lot of really good people because there's a new visa that's being offered up for tradespeople as well. And if we don't get our stuff together here in Canada and learn that we must compete, we're not entitled. When Jolie says unjustifiable and what did she say? Unjustified and unjustifiable. I don't know if she has used both words. Unjustified and unjustifiable tariffs.
Illegal.
We have to learn to compete. We're not entitled to America. We're not entitled to them because we've been lucky to be their next door neighbor. We rest comfortably under their umbrella. Like I said, when I was in Tokyo, they really respect America there. They fly the flag everywhere because they know they rest under the protection of the Americans. Here, our government, Mark Carney, has decided to pick a fight with Donald Trump for some reason. They don't want to reconcile. They're using it for their own political means. They don't want to reconcile. Who cares? We care. Most of the population cares. That's who cares. And that's the sad.
It's very popular though, isn't it?
Very popular with the CBC. So cut out the CBC. Cut out the CBC. Take away their strength, their power, and watch us. Share us, because the CBC. Go see what we covered today, and go see what the CBC covered today. Tell me which of them's better. Share that with the world for us. Anyway, we're back tomorrow, 9 a.m. hopefully. Ian's got a sick kid today. That's why we're late today. But help us share this. We try to be here at 9 a.m., but we don't have that $1.5 billion to mess around with, right? So with that said, thank you for watching Now Media.
Just report the news. We live here too. We're your neighbors, bringing you stories that matter to all of us. No government funding, no outside influence. Kelowna Now, local, independent. News you can trust.